Hello and welcome, Electus Society community. This is a level 3 training 7 training with a guest speaker, Jen Osorio Allen, who's a licensed clinical social worker. But because we had a guest, we decided to open this up to the entire Electus community, levels 1 and 2. So I'm really excited for those who are participating and those who are going to watch the recording. So let's go and start off like we do with all level 3 trainings with a 2-minute guided exercise. Kind of meditation to ground ourselves. So let's do that right now. Feel free to turn off your camera and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Rosalie, and welcome to this 2-minute meditation. Find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to blink closed. Now take a deep breath in and let it go with a sigh. And again, deep breath in and sigh it out. Breathing in again. And as you exhale, let go of any worries, any concerns, any niggling thoughts. With every exhale, allowing any tension to melt away from your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Just for this moment, letting go of any worries, any concerns, knowing that you can always come back and take care of these later. Now settle into this space of ease and comfort, where there's nothing to do except to relax and enjoy this feeling. And it's time now to come fully back into your body, feeling relaxed, serene, and ready for whatever lies ahead. Namaste.
Namaste. All right. So let's go with the next part of our training. So what are we going to be talking about in today's training? What are the learning outcomes? Well, first, we're going to have the first half of the presentation is going to be with our special guest, Jen Osorio Allen. She's going to talk a little bit about her background, how she became a licensed, clinical social worker. Guess what? Just because she's in that field doesn't mean doesn't suffer the same anxieties, stuff that we're all dealing with. So she's going to share her stories and see how it can help all of you who may be dealing with similar situations so that you can actually overcome different issues of anxiety, panic attacks, and be in the best mental state of health. And she's going to provide you 10 lessons that you can learn. Then once that, we'll have a Q&A with her on that. Then we're going to go to part 2, which is all going to be about wellness. We're going to have several activities where we will rate yourself on the different areas in wellness and different aspects of your life and different action steps you can take, as well as some other activities. And then finally, we're going to be talking about healing and alternative therapies. And again, all these different sections, we're going to have discussions. So we're going to be opening up to all of you to share your experiences before we go into the training so that we can learn some of your best practices and things like that. And I will end with some of the stories that I've done some alternative healing therapies that have been tremendously helpful for me, that just go outside a little bit of the typical mainstream that you might learn in the typical therapy. But if these outside of the box traditional therapies, can help you, then I'm glad that they're there for you to go down your path and figure out what works well for you. So let's start off with a discussion first. So if you feel like sharing, so don't feel forced that you have to. Have any of you suffered with any mental health care issues? You know, what did you suffer from and how did you overcome them? Or maybe you're still having these issues, but there's certain things that you are doing that is really helping you keep them at bay. So, does anybody like to either raise their digital hand, unmute themselves, who like to share just some of the stuff that they've been dealing with? I really love to hear and get your perspective and learn your best practices. Who'd like to share? Don't be shy. How about I choose somebody? Let's start with you, Susan. Do you feel like comfortable sharing? You could, if not, you could always say pass. Susan, are you there? You're still on mute. There you go.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I shared in the chat because my TV is way up.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see the chat. So thanks for calling to our attention, Susan. I appreciate it. I suffer from major depression and generalized anxiety, and that's definitely what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. I can't unmute right now because my mom has her TV all the way up. Got it. Understand, Susan. I really appreciate it. How about I call on one more person? Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining the training. Do you have anything that you've suffered from, different mental health challenges, whether it's depression, anxiety, anything like that, or any kind of best practices you do to keep those at bay? Elizabeth, feel free to unmute yourself. I don't think Elizabeth can either hear me or unmute. All right, and then we'll do one more time. How about you, Estelle? Just get one more person. Estelle, if you can unmute yourself.
I think I remember one time. That has been some years now. It should be 20, maybe around 2011 or so.
Okay, what happened? Tell us.
I had what do you call it? Breakdown? Is it
Hmm.
meltdown? Yeah, I was going through some stuff like marital and whatnot, and yeah, the partner was. I found out that he was cheating and this and
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a pretty situation, and that was kind of like my first time to face that kind of situation, and I just broke down. Like I couldn't. I just felt like dying was the best option,
Wow. That's
and
intense.
I ended up going to the ER, the hospital, and they kept me for overnight as observation
Hmm.
because I was just crying. Like I just melted down. I was crying like nonstop, and uh, so one thing that helped me go through that night was I just wanted my Bible. I just told them, just give me my Bible and leave me alone.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It was mostly with me. I dealt with it from a spiritual point of view, unlike the medical thing. Maybe because I knew where it was coming from. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah.
prayer, meditation, and just being around some other people, it helped.
Wow. Well, first of all, thanks so much for sharing such a very deep and personal story. I know that a lot of people have gone through that. Betrayal is a very, very deep and hurtful thing, and to see that you ended up going to the hospital of it, Jen's going to share some stories that may be a little similar as well, and some of the different strategies. But I do love that you used your faith, right, to help you, and prayer and meditation. Again, those are best practices that we're going to be talking about to help you overcome a lot of the different struggles of life. So I think that's the best way to transition to you, Jen. So I'm going to pass it over to you. Please tell us about yourself and different tools that we can have for dealing with having the most optimal mental health care.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. As Tim introduced me, I'm Jennifer Osorio Allen. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And tonight, I definitely want to share some ideas on how to take care of your mental health. And before I do, I'll just share a little bit of my background. I graduated from Brew College with a bachelor's in psychology. And then I went on to get my master's in social work from NYU. My degree is in clinical social work. So it specializes in particularly like wanting to be a psychotherapist. And I've practiced being a psychotherapist and a school social worker for about 15 years now. And I've been, it's interesting, Estelle, like I'm going to actually share a story very similar to yours. But before I do, I'll just also share that I worked at a outpatient mental health clinic for about 6 years as a bilingual Spanish speaking therapist. I worked with families and individuals. And then while I was there, I opened up my private practice. And so I did that for about 7 years. And then after that, I got an opportunity to work for a public school. So I ended up becoming a school social worker. And I've actually been there ever since. I've been there for about 10 years. And excuse my cat's tail behind me. He's asking for cuddles. So I've been at the public school for about 10 years. And while I was there, I actually taught my students mindfulness meditation. And one of the biggest goals while I was there was for them to learn these like free tools that they can access at any time when they were feeling stressed with their lives. And a couple of my students were pretty blown away at like meditation can actually help with, just feeling angry, depressed, sad, anxious. So I've actually meditated in my personal life. I've been meditating for 9 years. And it actually has helped me tremendously with my own anxiety. But I'm gonna rewind a little bit. A couple of years back, I was in a session with my therapist, and she just told me, "Oh, Jen, you're an anxious person." And I was so shocked. And I said, "No, like I'm so chill and easygoing." And she just laughed and she's like, "No, you're not. You're an anxious person." So that was like one of the first moments when I realized that I was an anxious person. And my journey on figuring out how to manage my anxiety like really started from there. But like a big moment in my life where I had my first panic attack was when I was part of a family dispute, and it involved me stopping a friendship with a very close friend with the family. And so I remember driving to work one morning, and I just started feeling lightheaded. Like I almost felt like I was gonna get a stroke, like I was gonna have a stroke, and it was horrible. Like I felt like I was going to die, but I was able to get to the emergency room. So I get to the emergency room, and the doctors are doing all these exams, and I'm thinking like, something's physically wrong with me. And after, practically a full day there, they tell me you're physically fine. Like nothing is wrong with you. And you had a panic attack. It's your anxiety. And I was very surprised. I've never had a panic attack before. And while I was in the emergency room, my sister actually arrived, and we were talking, and it was like almost like a very intuitive conversation we were having. And my sister just told me, "Hey, Jen, you don't have to stop being friends with this close friend. Like it's okay for you to continue the friendship." And I remember just crying so much. It was this feeling of sadness, but like relief that I didn't have to end this friendship that was so important to me. And it was also like just cathartic as well, like just like, because it was like this cry from like your gut, like it's just letting it all out. And I was just like so grateful for just like having that conversation with my sister and being able to continue the friendship. So looking back at that moment in my life, um, I realized that, you know, the trigger of my panic attack was, you know, the turmoil that was happening inside of me, which was knowing deep down inside that like I knew it wasn't like the right decision for me to end a friendship, but at the same time, you know, I'm a people pleaser, so I wanted to please my family, I wanted to be loyal, so it was a lot of conflict going on inside of me, which triggered my panic attack because I just didn't know what to do. um and it was just like it was the request from my family to end the friendship was just going against my own gut feeling of continuing the friendship. So, you know, I share this story because, you know, friends and families are gonna sometimes request things from you to do certain things, and they'll go against what you truly want to do. So it's like so important to always like trust, like speak your truth, be authentic. Like in this case, it's like I was able to have a conversation with my sister and just like, no, like I want to continue this friendship. Um, but also just like following your gut. Like if you know it doesn't feel right, like even though you're going to disappoint somebody, like follow your gut, you know, because that's your truth, you know, or like, you know, I've also learned like speaking to your higher self, um and then just like practicing saying no to people, you know, like no, this just doesn't work with me, you know. um you're requesting something of me that just doesn't resonate with me. and and being okay with disappointing people, and again, like I'm a people pleaser, and I'm still working on it, but saying no is, it's almost like you being kind to yourself, like just you know, staying true to yourself. um so that was like one of my experiences. That was my first panic attack. And again, like just learning that it's okay to disappoint people. And I'm gonna lead into my second share, with disappointing people, because I've had I've had many experiences with my husband. Um, we've been together now for a couple of years, and it's there. We've had a lot of moments of, um, you know, like having arguments, and it was because of me saying no. So before I started practicing saying no, you know, again, being a people pleaser, it was just like, yes, sure. You know, being very agreeable with him. And one of the things that we would argue about is, you know, he's the kind of person that's like, all right, I'm going to get 4 to 5 chores done in a day. And so there was just this expectation of him towards me to do the same. So, you know, whenever I would say like, oh, no, 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 he would get upset or disappointed. So I ended up just agreeing and saying like, yeah, sure, sure. I'll do 4 to 5 chores a day. But what ended up happening was that I wouldn't do these chores. And it was just like basic stuff, like, you know, cleaning out the sink, like organizing the house. And like we both shared these chores. Um, he would get them done. I wasn't able to get all of them done. And then it would just, you know, lead into an argument. He would be disappointed. And so then I started realizing, I'm like, I think I just need to be very honest with myself and also with him, and just not overcommitting to so many chores and just saying like, I'm only going to do like 1 or 2, like that's what I could do. And I remember like when I practiced, like when I said, okay, I have to start doing this for myself, because it would just build so much anxiety inside of me. And like, I would just feel so stressed that I was like, you know what? I just have to put my foot down and just be very upfront with him. So I started saying, no, I am only going to do 1 or 2 chores. We would get into an argument. He would say, oh, I'm doing 45 chores. Why can't you do that many? And I would have to explain, I'm like, I'm not like you. This is what I could do. And, you know, even though he got upset, even though I was so nervous to say that, like, just to say, like, you know, to set boundaries, it actually was really, really helpful and healthy for us, because I would actually commit to doing 1 or 2 chores, and I would follow through, get them done. And then it was like, oh wow, like you got them done. So we weren't having these arguments of him being disappointed. It was that I didn't finish the chores. It was more like, oh, okay, wow, thank you so much. He got them done. And so it was like a hump in the road, you know, just to practice saying no to him, and then giving him more realistic expectations of myself and what I can commit to. So I share this because setting boundaries with people and disappointing people is going to happen in life, but it's so important for your own mental health, because you like, at least for me, like I realized like that was triggering my anxiety even more, you know, by overcommitting, and just saying yes to everything. So and actually it's funny because, you know, we've been together for a while now. He's like confessed to me, he's like, you know what, Jen, I like it, you're not a pushover, you know, like you put your foot down, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. So even though he got upset in the past so many times, like he actually appreciated that I wasn't a pushover and I set my own boundaries. um so, you know, that was like a big part of my life of like learning to work through that kind of anxiety in my marriage with my husband. So like the big lessons are like, you know, conflict is going to happen in relationships, and in any relationships, like because even saying no to friends and other family members, like they're going to get upset. But it's so important, again, like I said earlier, stay true to yourself and don't overcommit to yourself. um Stop comparing, you know, ourselves to other people. um Keeping your word is so important. And like all these lessons, you know, it's not that anxiety goes away, but you become aware of how to work through it, like just, you know, manage it. And you just feel more, you just feel better about yourself. You feel happier with yourself. And it's all like like a web, like a domino effect almost, like because it's like then you just like learn to accept yourself for who you are, and then you start manifesting things in your life, or people in your life. So I'll share this final story, which is when I was single. I was in the dating world, and it was rough. It was, I I had a lot of moments where I was just I was just like so stressed and anxious going on dates, because it would just trigger my insecurities. You know, just I would feel unsure of myself, my like just feeling if I was worthy enough, just being with somebody. Um, and so for a while, like, you know, I would just like wonder, like, oh my God, when am I going to meet somebody? When am I going to meet like somebody compatible to me? And at like this point in my life, I learned how to meditate. And meditating was so valuable in learning to get to know myself, but also love myself. And so, I started doing that, meditating. I tried my best to meditate at least once a day. And I remember meditating once, I was in my moment meditating. And then towards the end of my meditation, I asked my higher self, uh, why am I still single? Like, why haven't I met anybody? And then after a moment, I just got this clear answer that just said, you need to work on yourself. You still need to work on yourself. You're not ready. And when I got that answer, I just started crying. Like, I was just like, oh my God, really? Like, what else do I need to do? I've been working on myself for years now. Like, what? But at the same time, I was grateful for the answer, because it was like someone telling me the truth. Like, they're not gonna like you still have to work on yourself, and that's okay, like. And so I was grateful for it. I cried. It was another cathartic cry. um and so, I focused, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to focus on myself. I'm going to uh continue with, with my career, and just doing things that bring me joy. But I also learned in that time was to be grateful, and to be grateful for every small thing in life. Sometimes we wait for something to happen to feel grateful, but there's so many things now that we can be so grateful, like the smallest things. So, for me, that was so helpful. And right before I met my husband, I was on a trip, and I was with a bunch of girlfriends, and we were hanging out. And I was on a boat, and I was just laying there looking up at the sky. And I just felt this immense amount of gratitude, like just through my whole body, just overjoyed at just my friends, just thinking at the fact that, like, I am whole and complete. I have my friends. I'm on this trip. I'm healthy. I'm alive. Like, what more can I ask for? Like, life is beautiful. Life is great. And so right after that trip, I remember, going online, because online dating is the thing, at least when I was doing it, but I think it's still now. So, my husband and I, we matched, we set up a first date, and we met. And it was like, oh my gosh, wow, like, this is a really nice guy. Like, I think this is going to work out. But I will say, before uh, meeting up with him, again, a lot of anxiety was triggered. And I was just telling myself, Jen, no matter what happens, I love you, Jen. You are great just the way you are. You are worthy no matter what. Even if you don't have anyone, you're worthy. And so, just repeating these kind of mantras to myself really helped me get through the anxiety that I was experiencing when I went on this first date. Um, and that's it. Like, I met him, and that, that it's history, as they say. The rest is history. So, the lesson that I took away from that experience in my life was meditating was so valuable for me, learning how to just truly just feel grateful for so many things in my life. Um, and just like accepting myself exactly how how I am, like, I'm whole and complete. And, just again, connecting with your higher self, because we truly do carry, like, we carry our, like, honest answers for ourselves. Like, once we are able to connect with our higher selves, like, we, sometimes we wish for certain answers, but it's like, no, your higher self knows what you need to know. um and just like also like learning a lot about myself. And then I can't forget my therapist. My therapist was amazing. She helped me through so many moments. And I really appreciate her for all the support. So yeah. If anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Well, while people are raising their digital hand to see if they have any questions, Jen, first of all, thank you so much for sharing, and then again being very vulnerable about those different stories that you've had all throughout your life. And I think those were all great tools. And one of the things that when I first heard your presentation, kind of we went over it, was, well, what kind of tools? There are different people at different levels. So again, I've been encouraging meditation a lot through Electus Society, but different people still struggle with meditation, right? So the first question I wanted to know, or maybe the first two, is what other resources do you use for meditation for the people who struggle with that? And then also number two, I'll ask, is a therapist. What if somebody doesn't have a therapist? What should they do? Where should they go about finding a therapist? And any other kind of best practices?
Yeah. So I actually use an app called Insight Timer. They have free guided meditation sessions, and they're as short as like 3 minutes to like 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So I know when I first started meditating, I needed guided meditations because the mind wanders and we can get distracted. So if something can like guide us through it, I found it helpful using guided meditations. And then I found this app, and they have free, really great meditations and different topics on whatever you want to work through with, whether it's anxiety, depression, physical health, manifesting. So I highly recommend this app. And therapists, like looking for a therapist, I would recommend either going through like your health insurance, and finding out, because sometimes health insurances have a list of therapists. Psychology.com also is a great website to find a therapist. And like, I know sometimes people can feel a little bit unsure of going to a therapist. So even if you can find someone that you can confide in and like you trust, that you could just talk to and they could listen, then but just having somebody to talk to and talk it out, it really makes a difference, because sometimes we want to just hold things in. We don't want to share or trust other people, which I get. The only thing is that it starts bottling up. So it's important to find somebody to talk to.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. I'm just going to make a comment while we're waiting for any other questions, Jen. I've had a lot of different therapy, a lot of different therapists throughout my life. And one of the things that I wanted to, and I think that you would vouch for this, because we've kind of talked about this, is if you are not resonating with a therapist, if you're not vibing, if you don't feel like they're really truly listening, or that it's just not, I mean, a good therapist, listens and challenges and asks questions. It doesn't, that person doesn't tell you what to do. Oh, you should just do this and solve all your problems, right? And that it's okay to tell therapists that, you know what, this is not a right fit, or I'm still looking for different therapists. I haven't settled on one yet, so that you can kind of shop around. Would you vouch for that too, Jen?
Yes, absolutely. I really do believe like when you meet somebody, like you could tell if you have like a connection with the therapist. So like in my experience, I actually shopped around for a therapist. I went to several therapists, and I let them know from the beginning, like I'm actually shopping around, because I wanted to find who was compatible to me, and they understood it. Each one was like, no, we understand. So I would have a first session with them, and from that first session I knew like, okay, either I didn't feel like they were that engaged, or maybe they couldn't relate too much. So when I think I went through like 4 or 5 therapists, first just one session, until I found my therapist. Actually, maybe it was 6 or 7, but so it was a couple. But once I found my therapist, the first session I knew, like, and I told her, I said, oh, I like you. I want to stay with you. And she's like, no, no, no. I know you said you wanted to shop around. And I'm like, no, I like you. I know we're a good match. And she's been my therapist now for 17 years. Um, and I will share, you know, you don't have to be in therapy for that many years. I have chosen to be in therapy for that many years because of my profession. So in order to really help people, I need to be well. And so that's why I have had a therapist for that many years.
Perfect. Perfect. And I'll just add, sometimes you outgrow your therapist. And so if you're like me, or if anybody kind of resonates, I'm a person that loves continual growth. And there is a big difference between a coach and a licensed clinical social worker or a licensed clinical therapist, you know, and different people have different rules that they follow. And to me, I'm just seeking out gurus. I'm just not not in the sense that they're going to tell me all the things. It's just I want to learn. And so I found that after 1 or 2 years, this is just my own personal story. I learned everything I could with the therapist, or there might be something where the therapist knows me so well, where they almost look as me as like a son, and there's like a almost like it develops like a family type relationship after so many years. But then guess what happens? And Jen, you could help vouch for this, right? It's like sometimes they start to lose their objectivity, right? Where they love you so much as if they're your friend, they're a close friend, and then you might spill into, oh, giving you advice, or you know, not providing that clear, you know, third party perspective. So I've just found that it's okay to also leave your therapist after a period of time if you're not getting value. And I remember telling my therapist, like, hey, therapist, I'm ready to go. Like, I think this should be my last session. And then remember, she's telling me, you can't do that. you can't just quit your therapy. I need to make sure that you're okay. Let's talk about this. Let's have another session. And I'm like, all right, I'll have another. I'm not afraid of like therapy. I'm not trying to run away. And it was very funny because the next session, and then we just had a couple more. And then what ended up happening is I said, okay, then maybe not let's quit therapy. Let's do every once a month or every 2 weeks. And we did that. And let's do once a month. And then when it got to the point that the issues that I was dealing with were all resolved, you know, I said, hey, I think it's time to be done. And she's like, yeah, I think you're doing well. Great. You know, I wish you the best. So that was just a story I wanted to share. So one final request. Does anybody have any questions for Jen, a licensed clinical social worker, on dealing with issues of depression, anxiety, anything like that? All right. I think, Jen, you did a great job covering it, you know? And I'll just share with you, I was trying to find different videos to like that I could help add as the other part of the presentation. And there's a famous clinical psychologist who's very controversial, who was Jordan Peterson, for those of you who know who he is, right? He's been a practicing clinical psychologist, but again, dives into politics, and I can understand why he's controversial. And he talked about therapists and talked about different modalities to healing with depression and anxiety. And one of the things, because I wanted you here, Jen, to hear this, he says, you know, about medication and using drugs, right? Dealing with depression. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. And he said, depending on your severity of your depression, you should not demonize a person for wanting to take medicine or medication. It could be very beneficial, you know, for some people. And he's like, just trust me, being a clinical psychologist for 30 years, most people don't want to take medication. So the fact that they are, it was already took so much of them to actually take the medication. And guess what? You could try it for a month. And if you feel better, that could save your life, right? And if it's not working, don't. So I just wanted you to comment about that, Jen, about medicine and medication, because I know some people take some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to, you know, follow with what a professional is guiding you or recommending. And medication can be so helpful, so amazing. And like I've heard so many stories of people like with anxiety and just like not wanting to take any anti-anxiety medicine, and then the minute they try it, like they actually started taking it, their anxiety was like so manageable. They were just like, why did I wait this long to wait to like take medicine? So yes, I do recommend, like, if that is medicine's going to help, absolutely go for it, because it can be very crippling too, feeling a lot of anxiety or depression. It could really stop us in our tracks, with achieving whatever we want in our lives. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate you for doing this training. I know that you only have a little bit of time, so you won't be able to stay to the end of the presentation in case anybody has any questions, but Jen might stay on for a little bit, right? Is that correct? Just a little bit, or do you have to go now?
Yeah, no, I could stay on for a little bit.
Okay.
Susan actually shared a question in the chat.
Oh, yes, great.
How do I get out of this funk I've been in? I have been deeply depressed for quite a few months with a few good days, but it has been downhill for about 2 weeks. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Susan. Thank you for being vulnerable. And what I would say is, you did share that you have been feeling depressed, working through, it's been a challenge. I would definitely recommend seeking out like professional help, like going to a outpatient mental health clinic, or a therapist or psychologist that's connected with a psychiatrist. Because sometimes, oh, okay, great, I have a therapist that I talk to. Okay, that's great. And what has your therapist shared or recommended with
I know that you may be typing and stuff like that,
yeah, okay.
but like in general, what would you do if somebody has a therapist and they're still feeling downhill and things like that?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend that they connect with a psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist then would do an assessment, and they would be able to then say, like, recommend probably medication. And again, it doesn't have to be forever. Sometimes we're just going through a really rough patch in our life. um, and it's like having a really bad headache, and you're like, no, I don't want to take Motrin or Advil, and you just go through life with this headache, that the minute you take Advil or Motrin and it just goes away, it's like, oh, I can actually focus on like other stuff in my life. So I I would definitely recommend seeking out a psychiatrist if the therapist can recommend a psychiatrist, and just start off with just getting an assessment, and then you just take it from there. But um yeah, I mean,
Well, I'll add something, Jen, and then you can feel free to comment. Oh, she
yeah.
shared something. Okay.
So that's the thing. When I'm having good days, are the days that I have a good day. I have once a month therapy. Oh, that was once a week or other week. But when I talk to her, I don't feel much better. Oh, okay. How long have you been with a therapist?
Well, while she's answering that,
Yeah.
I'll chime in. I think very strategically and conscientiously, which is what what I think that has helped me. So whenever I look at a situation, I say, what are all the different possible solutions that I could do? Like, what are all the different types of change? The fact that Susan's saying, I need help, right? I'm out of funk. I want to get out of it. Like, that's already a big victory, right? Because most people will just stay in that state and not seek out help. So I think we're going to provide a lot more tools for the rest of this training that can help Susan. And I think, Susan, I see it that you said that you've seen that therapist for over a year. So here's my 2 cents, and then Jen, can you please comment? Like, one is, okay, what do I have within my sphere of influence? If you're seeing this person once a month, does it behoove you to go back to once a week or once every 2 weeks? So like increasing the frequency, that's something easy in your sphere of control. Number two, if you don't feel much better with the therapist, is it time to look at a new therapist like we were talking about before, right? And it's okay if you test out different tools, that if the same tools are not working, It's time for us to change the different tools. And I think there's going to be a video I'm about to show you about Tony Robbins that really helps with kind of getting that jump started, because we can know that we need to take new actions, but we may not feel or be motivated to take those new actions. So how do we get out of just what you call that funk? We're going to be talking about some tools. So Jen, do you want to add anything else to what I shared?
Yeah, sure, I do. But Susan did share that it takes forever to get a new therapist, though, and that is why I don't want to get a new therapist. And I hear you. I hear you, Susan. It can take a really long time, and I it is a struggle either way. But it would be beneficial to just, even if it's going to take a while, like, and I'm not saying like stop with the current therapist, if it's like waiting a long time, like on a waiting list, maybe staying with your current therapist until you find a new therapist. Or sometimes there are some psychiatrists that could actually like provide therapy as well. So you could also look into finding a psychiatrist, and then just like, go that route, and then you could stop with your therapist. But yes, I don't recommend you just like stopping therapy with your current therapist. But if there's a way that you could put yourself on like a waiting list, or, and I'm not gonna lie, it does take work. Because I remember when I was looking, like I called so many people, I left voicemails, like, and I got a couple of responses back, but it did take a while. So I would say like stay with your current therapist, but if you can, again, just reach out, like it's almost like looking for a job. So you just like make a list of a couple of therapists you found, and then just set some time out in your day and just like just go run through them, either ask them if they're available, they have any available appointments, or leave them a voicemail, follow up with them if they haven't called you back in like, 3-4 days. But I do believe that when you put the effort out there, like it's almost related to like manifesting, like you're putting the energy out there, yeah, I know that is harder with Medicaid. Yeah, I hear you. And it definitely is work. But I do believe like just setting the intention of just trying, just stay with your therapist, but just try to just like reach out to as many therapists as you can. Somebody will pop up. Somebody will be available. But if you could even, again, try to reach out to a psychiatrist, they also can provide counseling or therapy as well.
Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it. And thanks, Susan, for your questions. And I did love the Jen, what you talked about. I often mention that whenever I was managing people tend to think linear, right? Instead of thinking in like a shotgun approach, instead of like firing one bullet, they could fire a bunch of bullets, or like I like to call it, the left hand can be working while the right hand is doing something. So again, seeing your therapist, increasing frequencies, asking for referrals and recommendations, maybe even being honest with your therapist, like, I don't feel like this is working. And then maybe the therapist like, oh man, I'm not doing my job. Maybe I need to give you some new referrals, or maybe I need to up my game. You'd be surprised. Go ahead, Jen.
So I will piggyback on that. As a therapist, I always appreciated my clients like telling me like, yeah, this isn't really working out. Like, I don't feel like you're challenging me. I don't really feel like you're hearing me. And that really like opened up the doors to just explore even more, like, wow, okay, what is it that I'm not doing that's not meeting your needs? So sometimes it could just be as a just honest feedback to your therapist and saying like, hey, I feel like I'm missing this from the sessions, and you could tell her, like, either she's not really engaged, or he or she's not really engaged, or you know, it could be so many things. It depends on what you're experiencing, but being honest helps so much. And I've always, as a therapist, I've always appreciated the honest feedback from my clients. So
I think that's great to hear. And I can just make this personal story. I've seen a therapist, my wife's seen a therapist, and she'll have, after a therapy session, I don't ask her what she shared in that therapy because I respect the privacy, because I think that's important. I'm like, how you do? And she's like, it was okay, but I really felt like this, and I didn't share this. I'm like, why didn't you share it with your therapist? That's your job. You have to communicate. You have to, if you can't be vulnerable with your therapist, like maybe you might want to consider a new therapist, right? So for the sake of time, I think we should keep going, but definitely.
share one last, she did share a
I
comment.
tend to shut down in therapy because I don't do it because I do it in front of my mom. I think I'll start to go upstairs for the therapy.
That's
All
great.
right.
That is an awesome step.
That's a
Yes.
victory. That's a big victory. All right. We
Great.
can end the session right now. All right. Okay, good. And I love her laughing out loud at the end. All
Yes.
right. Well, let's keep going for the rest of the presentation. Oh, go ahead, Jen. What were you going to say?
I think I may need to
Oh,
step
you
back.
got to run. So
Yeah.
everybody, thank Jen for being here. I appreciate everything that you done and shared, and allowing me to share as well. Okay.
Yes. Thank you all so much for your time.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Excellent. So, all right. So now we're going to move into the second section of this training. We're going to be talking about wellness. Okay. And I want to just hear from some of you all, what are some of your best practices in order to maintain your own wellness? And it could be the three different categories of physical, mental, or spiritual. And remember, there's three aspects to physical. It could be, what you do in terms of exercise. It could be what you eat, what you can sleep, in terms of mental, in terms of learning, growing, spiritual things that you're doing. So I love to hear from all of you, anybody who wants to share what really works as a best practice for you. Who'd like to share? Don't be shy. I might call on some people. And you can also share in the chat. All right, Susan, journaling, excellent. Writing poetry, listening to sermons, absolutely, I love it. Who else? Cooking my own food with Estelle. I like that. Kieran, you joined us. Oh, there we go. Physically going to the gym. I love it. Okay. Any other best practices? All right. For the sake of time, feel free to post it in the chat if you have any others. I'd love to hear them. Okay. So now we're going to do a little activity. So in order for us to measure our wellness, I want us to actually rate ourselves, okay? Because if you have all these different areas of your life, you can rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very poor and 10 being excellent. And here's what's great about rating your own self on your own scale. It's different for different people, right? So I'm going to give you some couple of examples in terms of how I rate myself. So for example, I have an ideal in my mind how much I should exercise or how much I want to exercise on a scale of 1 to 10. So to me, the ideal might be I want to work out 6 days a week. Okay. And right now I'm working out 4 days a week. And so I want to up that. So how would I rate myself on terms of exercise? I might give myself a 7. Okay. Or maybe I'm just doing weightlifting, but I want to do more cardio, right? And so that's why I score myself a 7. In terms of eating, in terms of sleep, hey, I might be only getting 9 hours or 7 hours, and maybe I think I should be getting 8 or 9 hours or 10 hours. Hey, people need different levels of sleep. So you rate yourself on that. Like, when it comes to mentally, are you learning and growing? Are you reading different books? In terms of, you can even add the category of your career field. Are you learning and growing in your career or your position at your job or in school, right? Your friendships, you can choose whether it's your partner, a love interest, or it could just be friends, or it could be family, however you want to define friendship. Like, in terms of mentally, are you doing what we talked about as best practices in terms of journaling and writing down what you're grateful for every morning and writing down your affirmations of who you are. I might score myself a lot higher, close to a 9 or 10 with that, because I journal every day and I find a way to do it. Out of like 365 days a year, it might be I do 360 days out of the year. And you may say, well, wow, Tim, how do you do that? Well, I've been journaling since 2015. And so it's taken me 7 years to get to that point. And so again, doing activities like this and rating yourself, and trying to improve yourself year by year, day by day, got me to that point. And then spiritually, what are the books that you're reading? What are you doing? And so for me, I start off every morning reading spiritual text. I didn't used to do that, so I might score myself a little bit higher than that. Some people listen to audiobooks. For example, Susan was listening to, sermons and things like that. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, rate yourself in all these activities right now. Go. Thanks, Susan. You've already scored yourself on all these categories. And then if you're done, just type done in the chat so then I could go on to the next activity if any of you all finish much sooner. Thanks, Susan. All right, I'm going to give you another 15 seconds because some people are already starting to tell me that they're done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, and time. Okay, now let's go on to the next activity. Now that you know where you are, anything that's less than 9 or 10, there's opportunity for growth. There's an opportunity for you to actually take better care of yourself. So remember what we learned in different level 1 trainings is that in order to have a vision and goal of what you want, it requires you to do baby steps. Okay. Why do we call them baby steps? It's because it's the most incremental, tiniest little thing that you can do. But guess what? By you taking this micro action, you are already in the process of transformation. And so what ends up happening is people who say, oh, I want to exercise. My ideal is I want to, exercise 4 or 5 times a week, but they haven't even been doing anything. Well, what is the most minimal amount that you could do that you can say, I can definitely achieve that? Like that is the most bare minimum I can do. So for example, if you're not exercising at all, what if you could just say, I'm going to exercise for 5 minutes. I'm going to do 10 jumping jacks, whatever it may be. Doing it with your eating or sleeping. Hey, I go to bed at midnight and I have to wake up at 6 o'clock from my work. What if I went to bed at 11:45? Like do you see how that's just a tiny little baby step? So for all of your scores that you scored a little bit lower that you want to get higher, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Write down what's one micro mini baby step that you could do that would get you closer to that excellent of where you're going towards. Okay, do that right now. Starting now, go. And then just in the chat, write done once you're complete. One more minute. Five more seconds. All right. Okay. So now that you have, and also, and Susan, I'm glad that you shared, because this is an opportunity for us to get very clear on the difference between goals and action steps. So for example, I would say that if you have a goal that you want to eat healthier, right? Or eat more than one meal a day, right? Or eat less sugar, it might be tough to consume that whole goal, but it'd be much better if you digest it into a bunch of different baby action steps, right? So for example, if you say that you want to eat more meals or eat healthier meals, write down as a baby action step, okay, and then remember, this is the next phase of this activity, is add it to your calendar. So adding it on your calendar, okay, on this time on Friday night, right, it's Sunday right now. Okay, I'm going to schedule 15 minutes to do some meal prep so that I can have a meal for tomorrow, right? So I'm going to have 2 meals. That could be something that's so simple, so easy to do. Okay, less sugar. What's a baby action step? I'm not going to buy cereal from the grocery store this weekend. So see, it's about turning those goals into specific actions. Okay, excellent. I plan to stop drinking tomorrow at coffee at the store. All right, great job, Estelle. And so an action might be, I need to get to bed earlier a little bit, right? I might need to schedule a power nap, right, midday, because again, why do people have to consume so many coffee and stimulants? This is because we're not well rested. We're not taking care of ourselves, and it can be very dangerous. So, and I'm a big advocate of green tea. Even green tea has a little caffeine. It's shown to have some health properties, but it's too much caffeine. That's really the problem, why people drink so much coffee. So thanks for sharing that, Estelle. All right, let's keep going with the rest of the presentation. So there's other things that I want to share with you. So now I want to share with you some of the tools that I learn on how to increase my own wellness, that I didn't know about this before, that I wanted to share with all of you. So when you are like me, that love coaching and training, I have my own therapist. I get my own coaches, and I share with you a lot that Landmark Worldwide was a great professional development organization that I joined. I worked for them for almost 5 years, volunteering with them, doing their programs and stuff like that. I got so much value from it, and I had a lot of different coaches. And one of the things that I ran into is, because if you're going to coach, you need a coach. If you're a therapist, you also have to have your own therapist. And so one of the coaches that I had really gave me some great advice, and it's really helped me. So when you're a coach, you have all these responsibilities. You have to coach people and stuff like that. And it's something that Susan said kind of really, resonates with me. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you just get into a funk? Okay. That means like one bad thing happens, and then another bad thing and another bad thing. And it just almost looks like, how come there's days where I feel like I'm such in the zone and everything's going according to plan, even things that happen to me, I'm not phased. But there are other times where I feel like everything's collapsing. How come I'm not doing this? How come other people are failing and not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And so one of the things that my coach always shared with me is, when you lack integrity, lack of integrity is going to show up everywhere in your life. So the best thing that you can do is you need to stop what you're doing and start making a list of all the different areas where you're out of integrity. Okay. And so he's like, do it right now. Like, write a list. What have you made promises on that you've broken? And because what ends up happening is when we give our word to different people, oh yeah, I'll get to you that on Monday, and then you don't do it, and then it's still waiting on your mind, and now it's Tuesday, and you're like, oh, I promised that guy or person I'm going to get it to on Monday, and then you make another promise over here, and then that hasn't been done. It's like you're doing weights, and these plates keep adding on and on and on of your broken promises, and it's so overwhelming that you can't actually lift it, and you feel like you're drowning. Well, how do you release that? Well, the first thing that I've taught all of you in Elective Society, especially, level one, like the biggest challenges leaders face and how to, develop these success habits. And I said, it's restoring integrity, right? It's all these promises that you broke. You need to reach out to those people, whether it's email, phone, and say, hey, this has been weighing on me. I said that I was going to get this to you, but I didn't. Okay. And so remember, what you do is, in order to restore integrity, you apologize that you made a promise, you didn't follow through with it. And again, notice how I didn't put 3 steps. I didn't say, now give them all the excuses on why you didn't accomplish what you need to do. Because aren't you tired of people making promise to you and then telling their sob stories of all the things that why they couldn't do? You don't care. It's like, stop telling me all this other reasons why you can't do it. What you really care about is that it doesn't happen again. All right. So that's the thing, is like, hey, I broke this promise. I said what you're going to do, but here's what I'm going to put in place so that that doesn't happen again. If you show up late to work, guess what you're going to do? Because there was traffic, don't say, oh, I was so traffic, I was stressed out. It's like, listen, sorry, I'm supposed to be here at 9 o'clock. It's not going to happen again. What I'm going to put in place is, I left 15 minutes away from my home in order to get here, or half an hour. I'm going to leave 45 minutes, an hour before, to make sure I'm here on time. That's all you need to do. And as leaders, we love that. As a manager or whatever, it's just like, quit the excuses. Just tell me what you're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's the high level of leadership that we're talking about here. And so when we talk about putting a system in place, as I've reminded everybody, it usually always boils down to 3 things. 1, you didn't put it into existence, meaning it wasn't on your calendar. You didn't have a system of kind of reminding you. Number 2, you got distracted. Okay, so how do you prevent yourself from getting distracted? You fall in love with alarms. Okay, every day when I start my day and I have meetings, people are like, Tim, how come you always call me on time? How come you call in the minute mark? Well, right before I start my day, I look at my calendar and I ask SIRI, set an alarm for this time, 5 minutes before this one, or 1 minute before this one, because I can't trust my own self to be reliable. I use systems to help me become more reliable. And this is what the most successful people in the world do, right? And the bigger your responsibility, the more you have to be on top of this, right? Imagine your boss doesn't pay you your paycheck for the week. You're gonna say, boss is going to tell you, hey, sorry, I forgot to do it. I'll send it to you next week. It's like, no, I got bills to pay, So the more responsibility you have, that's why you have to have systems in place and make sure things happen. Set multiple alarms, and then creating a buffer, right? I'm going to be flying out next week to do a training in Illinois at a different school. And guess what? I had to coordinate all my travel. I could have flown in the morning of and try to make it, but I'm like, no, I have to anticipate that flights will be delayed. And so I can't fly in that morning if I'm supposed to be there at that time. What if there's a car rental issue? It's like, no, I need to plan ahead. I need to come the night before. I need to do an earlier flight in case that flight gets delayed, so I can at least get there at night. I need to, coordinate. So it's planning all these buffers, just like you would when we talked about when you were doing a paper. It's like, don't do it the night before, have deadlines of when you have to do the outline or this by, and you hold yourself accountable to do that. Even doing this presentation for this training, I didn't say, oh, I have a training on Sunday. I'm like, no, Tim, you have to have the training done by this Friday. And so I worked on it. And then it's like, oh, Saturday. It's like you lie to yourself almost by like trying to force these deadlines to you so that you can anticipate well, what if something happens? My wife needs me. Am I going to show up to all of you today and say, sorry, guys, I had an emergency, I can't do the training today. That's me breaking my word. Okay. Breaking my integrity. So again, emergencies do happen. I know that you would all be flexible, but again, these are some of the tools that I want to share with you. The moment that you just tell that person, I'm sorry, I didn't do this. Guess what happens? I'll get it to you by next Monday. Woo, it's like weight has been lifted off your shoulders and you feel so much better. It's like, okay, I can breathe. I restored that integrity that's not weighing on me. And now I can get back to start doing things again. Okay. And remember, you're not always going to be perfect and you can't always make all your promises, but you can always restore your integrity and work on improving yourself. Okay. Here's the second tool that I want to help you in terms of wellness and everything is change your state, your way of being. Remember, this is called the study of ontology. This is in level 2 training or that we talked about, and in the level 1. I basically said, if you want to transform your environment, then it starts with you. You have to change your state. You have to imagine that you're a person in a room. And remember, this was in training number 9, humility, or training number 8, humility and openness to criticism, that whenever you walk into your room, once you choose your state, who I am is love and empowerment, will you actually radiate almost like it's a mist in the room and enveloping that entire room. So guess what? There's going to be love in that room. Now, I use this metaphor of the mist, but guess what? It's actually science, right? Emotions have frequencies. And so when we are angry, when we're loving, those frequencies vibrate. And like a tuning fork, people, even subconsciously, they can't even see those microwaves that they're feeling. But guess what? It's radiating. When you're around somebody, you can actually feel their love, even though they didn't even say anything. So again, if you want to change your environment, it's about you, starting with you. And if you're in an angry, upset, depressed, then you're going to see depression everywhere. If you're in a happy state, loving state, you're going to see love everywhere. It's just amazing. And I'm just going to show you a clip from Tony Robbins, and he actually talks about this exact point, but he gives you an actual even better tool to actually change your state. And just for the sake of time, I may just share this as an additional resource, just because there's some more content that I want to cover. But I'll just summarize the video right here. He basically says that everybody knows that they're focusing on their vision and their result, and they need to take new actions, but the person doesn't feel like taking those actions. So how do we get to take new actions when our state of being is we're depressed or we're feeling bad? And so what he says is he's used for celebrities, athletes, presidents. He's like, number one, you need to change your physical state. That means if you ask someone who's depressed, you're going to notice their shoulders are hunched over, they're looking down, their physicality is all wrong. So the moment that you make a choice, right, you change your focus, like, I don't want to be depressed anymore. Well, then you start doing things that don't make you depressed. You stand up straight, there's standing posture, lift your shoulders back, get up, walk around, move, do deep breathing. All of these change your physical state. And then guess what that does? It changes your emotional state. And then he also talks about gratitude, right? That's why I keep every day. I tell you guys, in the Elective Society training, start off with the gratitude journal. What are you grateful for? The moment you start off your day with that, it changes everything. And so again, these are the different ways of changing your state, right? And then once you change that gratitude, okay, now I can focus on what I want to accomplish. Now I can take those action steps. So really, really good. So I'll send this as an additional resource. And the other thing is, there's if anybody has Netflix, I recommend watching I Am Not Your Guru. It's a Netflix special about Tony Robbins, about his motivational speeches and conferences. There's such amazing stories, and I highly recommend you check that out. Again, that's a recommended resource. I can't send the link of the Netflix unless you have it, but I Am Not Your Guru. Okay, so let's keep going. So the next thing is, let's talk about alternative therapies, okay? How have you tried to overcome your physical or emotional dis-ease? All right. What were the outcomes? Does anybody want to share what alternative therapies that they've done to help overcome different trauma, healing, anything like that? Who'd like to share? I might call on some people. Kieran, how about you? Have you tried any alternative healing therapies, things that you've done? Feel free to unmute yourself. I don't know what that means. That's funny. Yes, meditation, Reiki. Oh, yes, Susan. Yes, yes. So, let's just jump right into, because I think there are other people may not know there are a lot of healing therapies out there, right? So, what did we talk about already? We talked about meditation. We talked about seeing a therapist. But that's not just the only stuff that's out there. There's many, many more things that are out there. So, I'm going to just share my story briefly. So as you all know from my different level trainings, I talked about, this was in, I think, level 2, transforming your relationships with loved ones, whether it's friends, family, etc. And so I talked about the story that I had, I was depressed. I was working with a life coach at the time, and I'm like, I was in a funk, and I asked my life coach, it's like, how do you know whether you're depressed or not? My wife or my girlfriend at the time was telling me, like, hey, you're not yourself. And she's like, my life coach said, take this test. And there's all these free tests online that you can tell whether you're depressed or not. And so what ended up doing, I took the test and it says, seek professional help. Like, yes, you need to seek professional help now. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so I went to my chiropractor, and my chiropractor recommended, like, if you're feeling depressed, you need to see this guy, Gary Spalansky. He's a shamanic empathic healer. And he wrote this book, Surgeon of the Soul. And a lot of my stories, actually 2 of them, are in this book that made it in, because what he basically did, shamanism is a way of like healing people, and many times it's really about ceremony and feathers and Native American, like all that other kind of stuff. So it has a lot of connotations. But what he did was a form of therapy. But he wanted to, as an empathic healer, he could feel what I was feeling and take it out of me. Okay. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of intense. But I was open. I was wanting to try new therapy. So long story short, because if you watch that training, go back and watch that training again so you can hear that whole story. But long story short is, I was depressed, my job, I was really frustrated, and he helped release all that anger that I had. And he helped me discover that I was being disempowered. I wasn't truly following my higher self. I wasn't being authentic. All the stuff that Jen shared, that was me. I was trying to be what my boss wanted me to be. And so once I was done with that therapy, he laid me down on a table and started to do Reiki on me. And if you're not familiar with Reiki, it's an Eastern healing modality. It stands for, came from Japan, and it was brought to the United States by this wonderful lady, I think a couple, 100 or more years ago. And now it's all over the United States. Reiki stands for universal life energy. And so he did his Reiki over me, and my body felt so calm, relaxed. I could feel the heat from the hands, and I became so fascinated that I studied it myself. And then I became a level 1 Reiki practitioner. Level 2 is an advanced Reiki person that can do distance healing. And then Reiki 3 level is become Reiki master, where you can actually teach Reiki to other people. And so again, as a society grows and grows, and we start to become much bigger, I'm going to want to do live in-person conferences, and maybe I'll actually be able, for those who are interested in learning about Reiki and practicing Reiki, I will teach you, right? So again, something to look forward to. But anyway, this radically changed my whole life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. This might be redundant for some of the people who've studied like Eastern or Oriental medicine. But again, I want to share with you, because some of you may not know this, or this might just be a refresher. Okay. So in Eastern medicine, there's the idea of chakras. Okay. These are energetic centers, but guess what? They're not just points on their body. They're related to different parts and different organs and different, lymphatic systems, different parts of your body. And and they're almost, you don't think of them as points, but think of them as a cone, a swirling cone of energy field, right? That's kind of like rotating. And so I put an image on the right for you to see that when you think of the crown chakra, right, that has to do connecting with the divine, right? So it's pointing up. The third eye chakra has to relate to your pituitary gland or your pineal gland. I've heard other people talk that it's related to your hypothalamus or whatever it may be, but each one of these chakras relates to different energy centers in your body and deals with different areas that you're dealing with. Your thyroid, right? Your throat chakra is dealing with communication. Your heart chakra, and many times people will either say it's green represent the heart, but sometimes it can be represented by the color pink, right? And it has to do with love and healing. The solar plexus chakra, what I like to call the stomach chakra, right, has to do with wisdom and power. And then the sacral chakra, because that's towards the more genitals. I always get confused. That's like the section. It's like about 2 inches below the navel. That whole area. If you're a woman, you have ovaries, right? You have it represents sexuality, creativity. And in the root chakra, which I sometimes confuse with the sexuality, type of sacral chakra. No, that's actually dealing with the root of your spine. So the root chakra has to do with your basic, most fundamental instincts and trust. And other people say it has to do with past lives or whatever it is. And that's a cone that faces downward. So again, I hope you guys find this interesting as I do. But again, I didn't learn really about much of this stuff until I studied Reiki, right? Because as you go into different levels, they talk about this stuff, right? So if you notice right around here, you'll see that different chakras relate with different emotional issues. So how do I know this is true? Well, look at where it says the solar plexus chakra, that abdomen right here. It's concerned with issues of self-esteem, okay? It's concerned with issues of power. This is what really blew me away, because personal power and how one expresses themselves in the world, because guess what? When I did that Reiki, not the Reiki session, that healing session with Gary, and I was dealing with my self-esteem issues, and I was dealing with my boss and trying to please him. And I ended up discovering that it was me on my inner child trying to please my brother, who I never felt I was good enough. Well, guess what? When he was, helping to release that for me, I felt a heaviness in my solar plexus, in my abdomen, and I was like poison was being pulled out. And all he was doing is that energy center in my abdomen was not operating at its full energetic frequency level, whatever you want to call it. And so he was able to release that and be able to have it function better, right? And so I felt more empowered. I felt, excited and felt like I could actually go about my day. And guess what I did? After that big event and that experience, I went up to my manager and I said, hey, this role that I'm doing for you, it's no longer working for me. So I had my personal power back. So again, very, very interesting stuff. So I'm just seeing some of the comments. Oh, yes, Susan talked about tapping. That's an alternative therapy. You learned about, Kieran, you looked about chakras from Last Airbender, a show on Nickelodeon. That's awesome. Aromatherapy. Yes, that's a great alternative therapy. I'm actually studying a new therapy right now. There's centers in Port Washington and all around the world called the Rays of Light. And it involves monitors all around in a room that are sending out different frequencies and have different lights, because lights have different frequencies and things like that. And it's supposed to accelerate the healing of the body. And some people might say, wow, Tim, that you're into the real woo-woo stuff. But I'm like, listen, this on their website, they talk about different studies that they've done. There's a peer-reviewed study that this girl who had autism, that her seizures reduced significantly from 8 a day to 1 a day just from this therapy. So again, we're in a new if any of you have seen the level 3 trainings, we're in a new realm in this world right now. I know that there seems like a lot of turmoil, but there's a lot of good stuff that's coming out. People are opening up and becoming aware to all these different new healing modalities. And so I want to share with you that, listen, I'm open, I'm willing to try. If it works, it works. 30% of the time it may work just from the power of the placebo, you being able to manifest, but other times it might be even more than that. So anything that you can do to help heal past traumas and things like that, I think it's going to be beneficial. So just to kind of wrap up on the last couple more points, here's my last tool that I want to share with you. Okay. And it's tool number 3. You have emotional pains and hurts, and you need to release those. Okay. So if you remember Jen's stories, do you remember how she said, like, the moment she connected, she meditated, she connected to her higher self. And then suddenly, once she got that answer, whoa, a wave of emotions came over her and she just started crying. Well, guess what? You'll hear people talk about this oftentimes. Oh, that was cathartic moment. Oh, it was catharsis. What does that actually mean? It means it's a purification. It's purging. It's releasing those emotions, those fears, those traumas. You can do it through art. You can even do cathartic things like writing a letter to deceased loved ones that made you angry or you felt hurt, and you just write it out, and it's all about getting out. And then some people, will either, if they're alive, they may even hand those letters to those people. Other times people just burn the letter, because it's all about releasing that. Because on the cellular level, as science is starting to advance, emotions are kept into the body, right? And so you need to release this tension. You have to eliminate this stuff. And so again, this is not really talked about, at least in therapy. What I've seen is they're like, oh, just talk about your feelings and you'll feel better. Well, yeah, that's one form of releasing, is talking about it. Your voice vibrates, you're sharing your anger and frustration. But how many times I've been in therapy where you can just talk about, yeah, I'm really mad at my mom, but it's like, no, you're not really feeling your anger at mom. No, I'm mad at my mom. Like, you have to kind of release that stuff. So this is a quote from Gary Spallanzani's book that I think that's worth reading. And I'm going to read it to you all right now, because I think it really, really helps. Okay. So here we go. Contrary to what we are generally taught, it's quite appropriate to allow yourself to express the anger, the hurt, and pain you feel someone has caused you in whatever way you choose. For example, hitting a pillow, twisting a towel, working out, okay, provided you do not attack them verbally or physically. You did this to me. That doesn't serve the highest good, right? In fact, this approach is a very spiritual way to release those suppressed emotions that keep us locked in the past. Holding on to hurts of the past keep us from embracing our own loving and acceptance of ourselves, and as a result, others. So each time we resist allowing ourselves to release our anger, resentment, feeling pissed off, etc., we push it down deeper and deeper. This makes it hard to release. And when we do it, guess what? It often comes out in inappropriate times, which even causes even more difficulties. How many of you know that you've not been yourself, and then suddenly a partner steps on your toe and you're like, ah, you're like, oh my goodness, I just stepped on your toe. But guess what? You were thinking and angry with stuff about work. And then it just comes out, because guess what? We are meant to be in a perfect state of harmony, joy, and peace. But we, with our thoughts and emotions, collect these things and we hold on to them. So part of people doing these alternative therapies and spiritual awakening is to release that, so we can actually love our fellow humans. Because again, we're all children of God. We're all connected. We're the oneness that we're all talking about and trying to strive towards. So again, by allowing yourself to release these repressed energies, you free your heart to remain open and expressive, peaceful and joyous. This also helps the people who surround you to be more open and loving towards you. That means the more stuff you release, guess what? That means your friends, your family, your coworkers, they end up being more loving to you. So I would remind people to check out the training. I think transforming your relationship with loved ones. I think it's training number 7 in level 2, where I talk about the story of healing my inner child. Because guess what? Gary ended up doing a simulation with me, right? An actual activity and exercise where he basically, I was getting so triggered by my mom. I didn't even want her at my wedding, but guess what he did? He said, Tim, close your eyes. Okay, I want you to imagine your inner child. Okay, I want you to send pink light to him, again, from the heart chakra, surrounding him. Okay, what would you say to your inner child? What does he want to say? And it was this kind of therapy almost of saying, why, what, feeling a certain way. And I was just bawling and crying, but guess what? It was all releasing. And he guided me to say, tell that inner child he can let go. He can be a kid again. So again, these are all these things because we need to release those pain. I also remember being bullied a lot. I talk about my relationship with my brother, right? Or brothers. And I remember Gary walking me through an exercise, and I felt so bullied by my brothers, and I was lost my personal power. And so Gary asked me to actually grab a towel and twist it, and I was twisting it, and it wasn't enough. And he's like, "Okay, I need you to hit a pillow." And I remember grabbing the pillow, and I started hitting, and I envisioned my brothers beating the crap out of them, okay, saying, ugh, like putting my fist around both of their necks. I'm like, "You can't hurt me anymore." And it's like, no one ever tells me about this kind of stuff. But again, I've done it. And guess what I was able to do? I reclaimed my power in a safe environment away from my brothers. And so now I felt that I have my power back. So I can now interact with my brothers in a different way. So again, the reason why I'm sharing these things, because I don't think we're taught a lot of this stuff on how important it is to release the emotional pains and hurts. So, and just in recap, remember, here are some additional tools. If you're in a funk, get out of it, restore your integrity, right? Tell the people you broke those promises, start adding different tasks to your calendar to start doing one by one, and you'll start to feel lighter and lighter. Change your state, the way of you being, right? Start off with changing your physical environment. Okay, if you're feeling disempowered, get up, stand up, take a deep breath. Remember, our breath is so powerful. And breathing in that oxygen. Remember, whenever you're in a stressful situation, you tend to hold your breath almost from anxiety, like fight or flight. But the moment that something happens to you, that you're stressed, imagine you just going, you release it. Guess what? You instantly become calmer. You release the cortisol, right? And that if you have emotional pain and hurt, chances are you can talk about it, but if it's still a trigger for you and things that people and things irritate you, well, guess what? That's life telling you you haven't released that pain. So talk to a therapist, get a coach, right? If you make the decision that you don't want those pains to hold you back anymore, then you have the power to get rid of it, right? So again, punching a towel, twisting a towel, punching pillows. Again, I hit the floor so hard that I think I almost hurt my wrist. So do it in a safe environment where you can't hurt yourself, right? But again, scream, yell, like I do a lot of different things. I've had a lot of emotions. I'm not perfect. I still have emotions and stuff that I'm working on from childhood and stuff. And I will do techniques that I've learned about where it's almost like, imagine your clothes are your emotions, and just close your eyes and or imagine ripping off those clothes. And like, these are all the pain and anger towards your friends or family, and just burning it in a purple flame, because I studied Saint Germain. He's also known as like the purple flame. It's like a cleansing flame, and just saying, burn, I don't want these emotions anymore. These are very important visualizations. It's making a choice. It's visualizing these things that happens and consuming it in fire and say, blowing it away. I don't want you to hold me back anymore. I release you. Okay. Now, for some people are like, Tim, this sounds all woo woo. For some of you, you're saying, oh my goodness, like, Tim, this is truth, right? You're speaking. Like, I'm telling you because I've done this. Okay. I've released pains. I remember one time I was feeling some way and I'm like, oh, this is bringing some emotions. And I said, you know what? I need to release this. I went over to my bedroom. I laid down like, okay, we're going to release this right now. And I'm like, I want to feel that. It's important that you feel the emotions of that moment, of that trauma and whatever. And I had this emotion swept over my body. I was almost like crying. And I'm like, and like release. And I just started like, like yelling, and I felt it in my stomach. And it was like my body was like releasing it. And I just imagined purple flame all around me, just consuming it. And guess what? After about like 15 minutes of this, took a deep breath, I felt like I could conquer the world, right? So again, you don't have to do it on your own. You can do it on your own. You have also other people. So I hope these different tools gives you some different perspective. And Kieran, I did see what you wrote, or Susan, I'm sorry, that you had a boyfriend and that you wrote a letter to him. And yes, it's okay. You don't have to send it to him. It's just about you expressing yourself. Again, this is something that's not really taught. Most of the time we're taught, close it up, don't share, don't say anything. And that's not good. It's not healthy, right? And so I hope that this training really helps a lot of you and those who are watching the recording with that. So thank you so much. At this point, I'll take any questions. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. And while you're doing that, I'm going to post this in the chat, the post assessment, because I want to get your feedback on the training. So does anybody have any questions? And if you have any questions, don't have any questions, any comments, what did you get from this training? Is there anything that you're going to now do or adopt or be helpful in order for you to take care of yourself and be more well? I might call in some people. How about Henry? Oh, great to see you, buddy. Can you yourself? Yeah. What do you get from this training or have any questions?
Awesome, Tim. Awesome training. I got a lot of tips. Just knowing that we're not alone going through certain depression stages,
Yeah.
and there's different ways to seek help and work with it. As you know my story, I'm one of those people that feel overwhelmed and takes on a lot. So I can relate. And I did get a lot of informative information. So thanks again, Tim.
You're welcome, Henry. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you being here. And listen, I'm looking at the time. We're done. I want to say thank you all for attending this training. And for those of you who are watching the recording, please fill out the post assessment. I want to know, again, what are you getting out of it and what action steps are you going to take moving forward? Because again, all sounds very nice and wonderful, but unless you actually take actions from what you're learning in here, it's not going to make a bit of difference. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody. I'll keep you posted about any other upcoming trainings, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Always.
Bye.
Okay.